you're getting married, you booked your venue, and you're wondering, where do I need to decorate? The key thing is, what areas do you actually need to decorate in your ceremony and in your reception? Now, we've put together this awesome list of all the key areas that you need to think about when decorating. So one of the first key areas that most couples will think about is their wedding ceremony and decorating for that. So Mon, what are some of the key areas or some of the key things that people do for their wedding ceremony?
So I think the first thing you would think about for your ceremony is going to be where is going to be your backdrop. So that's probably the main focal point. Would you kind of agree?
Yes.
For your ceremony? Yep. So whether it's an arch, arbor, some kind of flowers, plinths, that's just a few options there, but that's kind of going to be your first thing to think about. The next is probably your aisle, and if you want to decorate anything on the aisles, floral arrangements, candles, petals, a runway, carpet, whatever it is you want for your aisle.
A lot of it too is weather dependent. So
of course,
a lot of ceremonies, especially in Australia, are outside. If you want to have florals and petals and that sort of thing, is that practical? Are they going to blow away?
Yep.
But they're sort of some of the key areas that you would think about as far as decorating. Sometimes people have seating decor, so at the end of each aisle, whether it's bench seats or just individual seats, they may have florals at the end of those, or they may have ribbons, bows, all sorts of stuff.
Everything.
So it just depends on, again, what sort of level you want to go to. But I think the key thing here as far as your budget spend is that the ceremony area or the altar is the key focal point. So if that has some florals or some sort of backdrop, as Mon said, whether it's some draping or something like that, that's where the photographer is going to be focused on.
Absolutely.
That's where everyone's looking. So maybe you don't need anything in the aisles, or maybe you don't.
That would be the first thing that you would probably cut out rather than your focal point. That's where you probably want to spend more of your money, because that is where your photo's going to be taken, like Michael said, and that's where everyone is going to be looking majority of the time.
Yeah, and sometimes less is more. Yeah. You don't necessarily need to go overboard with the decor in the ceremony area. You could have a couple of floral stands with some nice cascading florals.
Yep.
And that's enough.
I guess the other thing is signage to think about for your ceremony. So, welcome to blah, blah, blah's wedding, which then can be repurposed in your reception. But your guests know they're in the right spot. They're kind of heading towards the ceremony. It's just a nice personal touch.
So the next area to think about as far as decorating goes is the reception entrance area. So that could be just a foyer area, outside sometimes, just depends, but usually most reception centres will have some sort of foyer.
You'll normally have a seating chart, especially if you're going to be having a seated reception. Your seating chart is normally always in the foyer area along with the welcome sign.
Floral arrangements again.
Definitely.
They may be repurposed from the ceremony.
Yep.
If not, you may have something custom made for that.
Yep.
Typically for the reception area, it's usually quite simple. Unless, again, you've got a big budget. Most couples don't usually go overboard when it comes to the reception area.
The entrance area,
It is the first point of that people see when they walk into the venue. So if it is styled nicely, even if it's just got nice soft lighting, some candles.
Yep. It knows what you're in
on the
for.
Bar, if there's a bar there. It just sort of sets the mood for the rest of the night.
It does.
But again, it depends on your budget.
Yep.
The next area that you would think of decorating once you've walked into the entrance area is the reception area. And this is a space that typically the tables are the first thing that you're going to see.
Yep.
And so table centerpieces is obviously key here.
Definitely.
Now, if you've got a large space, typically you want to do larger centerpieces because it will give you more,
ceilings,
more impact.
Yep.
Sometimes if you do small centerpieces in a big space, it can look a bit underwhelming. But again, comes down to budget.
Yep.
But if you can do bigger centerpieces in a large space, especially if you've got a lot of tables, it can look quite grand and really help decorate the room without doing a lot of other decor.
And there is so much that you can do with the tables. There's linen, there is napkins, there's candles that you can put in the middle. With the signage, there's menus, there's bar menu as well as food. There's your place cards all along the table numbers.
Yeah, some will just use a venue standard table number. Others will get custom ones made.
Yep. If you're really fancy and you want different crockery, that's just an addition, all depending on budget. And then, the chairs that go around it as well.
Whether they're the venues chairs, a lot of clients now these days, venue chairs are quite simple and standard.
Yep.
Sometimes they're more of a corporate look than a wedding look.
Yep.
So they will bring in extra chairs or different chairs for the venue. So that will then obviously help style and create a sense of style for the venue, for your wedding. Obviously, one of the key things that most table settings will have is candles of some kind.
Yep.
Whether it's floating candles, pillar candles,
Yep.
coloured
LEDs,
candles,
if it-
LEDs,
Yep.
depending on the venue.
Yep.
You then move on to the bridal table. I don't know, maybe 50-50 or a bit more would
Yep.
have a bridal table these days.
Yep.
The trend is moving more to not having bridal tables.
Sitting within your guests.
And the couple will have 2 designated seats at each table.
Yep.
That's not always feasible depending on the numbers and the size of the venue. But even having one spare seat at each table, so the bride and groom or a couple can move around the space and mingle with the guests throughout the night. So that's quite popular.
Yep.
But there are still a lot of couples that have bridal tables.
Definitely. Yep.
And because they've got a bridal party as well, they need to sit somewhere. And so that is a focal point for decorating.
Definitely.
So whether we do
florals, if you're going to be having, a pretty decent bridal table and you want florals that are going to be all the way across, cascading down, again, candles, if you want something on top of your head, whether it's chandeliers or a flower installation, a backdrop, you could be having drape, you could be having a fairy light curtain, you could be just lighting in general. There's so many opportunities to be doing. And again, it's a focal point. Everyone at a wedding is always looking at the couple. And if they're going to be sitting at the bridal table, everyone is going to be focused on them.
Yes, there's a lot of photos taken at the bridal table, at the bridal party. So you want it to look decorated in some way or form. A lot will also depend on the venue styling or the actual venue itself.
Yep.
Sometimes you can have a venue that has, a really nice window behind it.
Yes.
And
you just want to enhance it with a bit of lighting.
Yes. So that can make it easier as far as decorating. You don't need to spend as much. You may just need to do some nice soft lighting behind.
Yeah.
If you've got big budgets and you want to go all out, you might have something like an LED screen.
Oh, yeah.
Where it can be personalised with images of you guys as a couple. It could be showing family images.
Yeah,
It could be
anything.
showing anything. A lot of it, again, comes down to budget. Most people, as we say, will do florals and candles as a minimum for the bridal table area.
Yeah.
Okay, the next area to decorate or think about decorating would be your dance floor and above the dance floor. The dance floor obviously is another big focal point. If you're having dancing at your wedding, a lot of your guests are going to be on the dance floor. So if you can enhance that area, it just adds to the whole wedding experience.
Yep,
So whether it be florals either hanging above the dance floor or next to the DJ.
Yep.
You can have floral borders around the dance floor. You can have acrylic dance floors in different colours if you want. You'd have, if you want to make it really fun, light up
dance floor. Yep.
You can personalise it by doing decals of your names or initials on the dance floor. You can build structures over the dance floor, have mirror balls and florals and make it more fun. Lighting is obviously a key thing to think about here. That is also, I guess, controlled by the DJ as well. Does the DJ have their own lighting, or do you need to get your decorator or a separate lighting company to do that? Obviously, you need to think about, as far as decorating over the dance floor, does the venue allow it, and can it actually be done? You may need to bring in other structural equipment which can then add to the expense. That's not always viable to do that, but a lot of venues you can hang things over the dance floor, can't you? And dance floor installations or above the dance floor are very popular as far as florals, greenery, and it all comes down to your styling, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's another focal point where the guests are always looking, and all your photos are going to have that in there with you and your partner dancing as well as the guests dancing. It's always, always in those photos.
The dance floor is usually in front of the bridal table.
Yeah.
So having a well-decorated bridal table can also add to the dance floor space as well.
Yep, definitely.
The next key area to think about would be your cake table. A lot of couples are still having cakes, whether they use it as whether they're actually eating the cake or it's just more for decoration.
Yep.
Or dessert station. Some couples or venues will do a dessert station rather than serve desserts for dinner, or they'll have a grazing table. So these are spaces that also need to be considered as far as decorating. If you're doing more of a cocktail style, I know we've done weddings where the grazing table is a main feature or main part of
focal point
to feed the guests, and we've made it into a focal point. We've built trees in the middle and done circular ones.
And trees over the top.
Yeah, we've done a lot of florals, or we've done lots of candles and decor in the actual food. So it's really like an art masterpiece. These are not areas that you typically need to decorate a lot. If it's just a cake table, you might have some basic florals or a little bit of signage or something like that. But still areas that you might want to consider as far as decorating. The next area to think about is the bar area. Now, sometimes people don't really want to do much in this sort of space, but it depends on how the venue is set up. Sometimes the bar is a big feature in the venue, so you may want to incorporate that more into your styling. Other times it's down the back, you don't really see it much, and you might have a few basic floral arrangements on it. So it can be either full on or it can be quite simple. Sometimes, we'll just do basic floral arrangements sitting on the edge of the bar. You might have something cascading down the bar. Other times we've built full floral arrangements or greenery above the bar and added in lighting to really make it a feature. It just depends on is there bar service or is it table service? If people are getting drinks brought to their table all night, they're not really going to be at the bar. So maybe
so it is a bit more of a waste.
You don't really need to decorate it. But if it's a cocktail style and people are going up and getting cocktails or buying their own drinks, then you may want to really decorate the space to really incorporate it into the venue.
And signage is also going to help with that as well. So then your guests know exactly what they can order and if they need to pay for their own drinks or not.
Can the lighting be dimmed? You don't want a super bright bar that's washing out the dance floor. So these are things that you need to consider as well when it comes to lighting and just the decor area for around the bar. Next area to consider, and not all venues will have this, is a lounge or chill out area. So some venues will have a separate space that's either a separate room or to the back of the room or side of the room. That's just a lounge area. So you may want to have some simple florals. You might want to
a little bit of candles.
You might want to bring in your own furniture and create a lounge area where you bring in lounges or mismatched seating or coffee tables and rugs and lamps and style it to match the rest of the venue and your styling and theme. So some venues will already have this and you might just put in a few flowers and go, yep, that's fine. And it's still nice. Others you may need to create this space yourself. It depends on the size of the venue, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Next area to think about would be a photo booth or photo wall or a selfie station. There's usually a mixture of these. Some people will have 360 photo booths. Some people will just have a wall. They might make it into a floral arrangement. Others will create some sort of selfie station. Mon, you've dealt with a lot of these for corporates and for weddings. What's the most popular?
Probably a 360 photo booth, I would say. It's very popular at the moment. But also the static works well for a wedding because you may not have the space for a 360 to be able to fit it in your venue. So just something to consider. But in terms of decorations, it's good to maybe get in contact with your photo booth company to see what they provide. So do they provide the backdrop? If not, then your decorators would be able to provide a backdrop for this, whether it's drape, flower wall.
But you also want to find out too, if they are supplying some sort of backdrop, does it fit in with your styling? Because you don't want them to bring a tropical backdrop and your wedding is
classic.
It's completely different. So if you're not bringing in an external photo booth and you're setting up something yourself, you can then style the backdrop to match your styling or theme for your wedding. And you can bring in your own props if you want to do it that way and just go to a cheap shop and buy some funny wigs
or get things printed and that the guests can hold up while they're taking their photos.
It's personalised to your wedding. So again, it all comes down to budget and where you want to go with that. Obviously, you need to allow room for this sort of thing. If you're having a 360 photo booth, they can take up a bit of space.
They can.
And not all venues you have that space once you've got all your guests in there. So that's something to consider as far as logistics and decorating in that space as well. Okay, so some of the other smaller areas that you may need to consider to decorate, and sometimes people don't even think of decorating these areas, is the bathrooms. You're not going to typically go over the top with decorating the bathrooms, but you may put in some nice smelling candles, some florals on the basin area.
Even decals on the mirrors.
A little personal signage of some kind, something that's a bit quirky or funny to the
you look fabulous.
It's an area that you typically don't usually think of decorating, but can add to the experience of your wedding. Another area is if you've got for smokers, ideally you want everybody on the dance floor. You don't want everyone outside, so you don't want to make it too
warm.
Too warm and inviting to stay outside or in the smoking area. But maybe, again, the right sort of lighting, some florals or some sort of decor, something that just helps tie in the space. But again, I would never suggest going too over the top in this space because you do want your guests inside with all the other guests. Which then leads us to, I guess, one of the key things that we've talked about a lot as far as decorating and the impact of your decorating, and that is room lighting. So whether it's mood lighting in certain colours, even if it's warm whites, just to bring out tones of your decorations, or it might be coloured soft pinks or purples or blues or greens, whatever your colour scheme is, or party lighting. So party lighting, obviously for dancing. If you want people to dance, you need the right sort of lighting to encourage that, and you want to be able to change the lighting depending on the time of the day or time of the night and the atmosphere that you want to create for your wedding. So lighting is very critical. and also very important in highlighting your decorating.
So another feature that we like to see or like to use is accent lighting in your venue space. So whether that's some spotlights over your centerpieces for each table, or whether you do have some kind of feature in your venue space and you just want to highlight it with lighting.
Yeah, well, if you've got a floral arrangement that's near the bridal table, if you dim all the lights in the venue,
you're not going to be able to
very
see
dark.
it.
So you might want to highlight that so you get the full feature of that all night.
Yeah.
Or even entrance signage or something.
Yeah, well, I was
like
going to say entrance signage, especially if it is in a dark foyer space, even your seating chart, because again, you obviously need to be able to read where you're going to go. So having lighting on that, it's nice.
Yeah, lighting, super important, and it's typically not overly expensive in the decor area, but can make a big impact. And we always strongly suggest using lighting in some form or another for your wedding venue. Okay, so as you can see, there's lots of different areas you need to think about when it comes to decorating your wedding. It can be quite overwhelming, and as we say, some will give you more impact and value for money than other areas. If we were to sum up which are the key areas that we think that you should definitely decorate, guest tables would be number one, because that's going to make a big impact.
Definitely.
Your bridal table, because there's another key focal point, and room lighting. So they're the key areas that I would suggest that if no matter what your budget is, whether it's $1,000 or $50,000 or more, they're the key areas you want to focus on first. And then if you've got bigger budgets, you can then move into all those other areas that we've talked about. So it can be as simple as a few candles and a few florals, or it can be over the top for every single space depending on your budget. But the guest tables, the bridal table and room lighting, getting those right and well decorated is going to make a big impact and give you the best value for money when it comes to wedding decorating.
Hope you enjoyed our tips on the areas that we believe you need to decorate for your wedding. Go check out our next video of what questions to ask your wedding venue when it comes to wedding decorating.